So as we saw yesterday, the first part of the shaila always is the permissibility of engaging, in the first instance, in some sort of what's called today GRS, gender reassignment surgery. It's a simple. You can actually take the emotional heat and sting out of the situation by looking at it in a very clinical way, which is it mutter to engage in such surgery? And the background always is, and again, we always keep coming back to the same point, in halacha, we do not have a proprietary interest in our body. In other words, it's not, oh, it's my party, I'll cry if I want to. Yeah, it's my body, I'll do with it whatever I like. Right, the battle cry. It's my body, I'll do what I like.
My body, my choice.
My body, my choice.
Slogan.
That slogan is just simply technically incorrect in halacha.
Right.
It is not your body. It is a body that you have very graciously been granted stewardship and custodianship to look after, to house your neshama for however long Hashem gives you. And therefore, for that reason, oh yes, personal hygiene and all of these things and being healthy and eating healthy and exercising are incredibly important. It's actually because you have a duty, not a right.
Are you viewed as a shomer to your body?
That's a very good question. To what extent are you a shomer? I like your thinking. You're on the right lines. You're absolutely on the right lines. Yes, we are a shomer of sorts. Definitely. The famous Gemara in Shabbos about what I forget. I think it's around about Daf Yud. One of the Amoraim went to saw one of the others, and he went to morning, and he he was on his way to the bathhouse, and he said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to do Gemilas Chesed to my host." He viewed taking a shower. I mean, this is brilliant and deep at so many levels. Think about it. His approach to taking a shower was, listen carefully, I am doing Chesed to my host. In other words, this ain't me.
Right.
Me is the neshama. I have made a moral choice to do chesed to my host. My host is my body, my skin. It's very kindly housing me. I am eternal. I'm a neshama. Right. I'm a soul. I'm going to live on. I'm not biodegradable. I'm not recyclable. Well, I might be Gilgulim, but whatever. But even the language it's couched in is so brilliant and so deep. I am going to do a chesed to my host, and that's why I'm going to have a shower. Not to identify totally with your body, and therefore it becomes my body, my choice. No, you do not have a proprietary interest in your body. You have an absolute duty of stewardship, of eating healthy, of exercising, in order to preserve and maintain your neshama in your body as long as you can, in order to acquire more eternity. And of course, you can do l'sakein olam, again a phrase which sticks in my throat, tikkun olam, because people always forget the place that it appears is within the context in Oleinu of l'sakein olam b'malchus shakai, to fix the world by it recognizing the Almighty, b'malchus shakai. Of course, we have to. That's not to say that social action it doesn't have its place, and we should all work towards a place, a society that is friendly, looks after other people. Absolutely, no question about it. But it goes a little bit deeper than that, and stuff I don't really want to say on video. But let's move on. So we were saying the first point is always a halachist, always. Irrespective of, and we do need to deal with the personal element, the emotional element, and if somebody feels strongly that they are trapped in the wrong body, the wrong gender, of course they're deserving of, it ought to go without saying, they're deserving of support and love and compassion and all sorts of whatever we can do to help make them feel better. But that does not mean to say that we therefore automatically just normalize that and say, well, actually, this is a perfectly normal thing. No, it's an aberration. It is a problem. It is a problem, but not that. This is really sort of part of it, that we normalize it, and the medical, like I said yesterday, the medical and the psychological literature has changed. Absolutely has changed within our lifetimes. DSM-4 to DSM-5, right? The diagnostic manual that was used by psychiatrists and psychologists. It's gone from being a gender dysphoria, from being what was classified as a mental illness, to just now this is an issue that society just really needs to deal with. And you just you change your identity, and your gender is malleable, and it just totally changes. Okay. And not only that, again, we have absolutely no problem. Well, if somebody else wants to do something, whether or not it's halakhically applicable or not, but then the notion of then forcing me to go along with your new assumed identity in terms of pronouns and all other sorts of stuff is a form of a violation of
language, also forçation of language.
That's right, and that's without even going into the politics. That was Jordan Peterson's opposition to BC 16, the law in Canada which wanted to actually make it an offence not to call somebody by their preferred pronoun.
So problematic.
Which is problematic from our perspective. But anyway,
It's violence.
it's a form of epistemological or philological violence as well. It's an assault on the English language, besides being an assault on generally understood norms of what freedom of speech represents. Again, to be very crystal clear for the purposes of the video, because I probably will put this up on YouTube, is that under no circumstances should somebody be not nice towards somebody else, and certainly not under any circumstances promote or threaten them in any way. That is unacceptable. But that does not mean to say that I therefore am then forced to go along with your preferred identity. Why? By law. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there in terms of what we're discussing. So we're discussing the halachic propriety, the halachic permissibility of undertaking such surgery. So we saw Rabbeinu Hanan. Let's just quickly, because today I want to go actually into a little bit more depth. We're going to finish this article, which actually is out of date. This article really is by Rabbi Bleich, which is out of date, for as you're going to see. But I thought it's useful. He's going to quote some United States law from the 1970s, and you'll see how society has on something as fundamental and so basic as to, we've gone from. Somebody pointed this out ironically. Within a generation, we've gone from everybody's all up in arms about, of course, we have to do everything, Me Too and everything to protect women. P.S. What is a woman?
Right.
Get somebody on record to go and say, what is a woman?
Right.
So we're all for women, and we're going to do everything we can, as we should indeed, to protect and to make sure they're safe, and they shouldn't be violated in any way. But we can't agree on what is a woman. What is the very basic definition? As I saw recently on YouTube in a Supreme Court, in a congressional hearing, where they're trying to affirm the choice of a new US Supreme Court judge, and they were asked, but today it's a politically loaded question to answer the question, who is a woman? What is a woman? And they had to sort of fudge, because if you come out one way or another, you're doomed politically from the other side. So yes, we're all for women, but we cannot agree on who or what a woman is. Just pointing it out. Okay, let's go weiter. So we have the Rabbeinu Hananel. Let's go to. We have Rabbeinu Hananel, who basically would, again, and this is important because of the weight that would be assigned to as early an authority as Rabbeinu Hananel, quoted by the Ibn Ezra, who to say that just because somebody has artificial female genitalia fashioned by means of surgery is not going to change their gender, very clearly. Okay, we had Rabbi Yosef Palaji, who we're going to look again in detail. I'm going to show you these sources inside, and we're going to have to learn them inside. And then what I found really interesting is we're on page 77 here, where it says parenthetically. And note, this is from the 1970s. He says, parenthetically, it is of interest to note that various courts in the United States have ruled that in the eyes of the law, surgery to transform genitalia has no effect upon the gender of the person upon whom such procedures are performed. Did you hear that?
Sorry, I was...
Again. Parenthetically, it is of interest to note that various courts in the United States have ruled that in the eyes of the law, surgery to transform genitalia has no effect upon the gender of the person upon whom such procedures are performed. And this is, look at the citation, number 4, Anonymous versus Anonymous, 67 Miscellaneous, 982, Baker versus Nelson, Minnesota, U.S. Supreme Court, Jones versus. Now, what are the years? I'd have to look up and see those years, but I'd have to find out when these years are. But certainly, sort of 20, 25 years ago, the United States Supreme Court and the various courts there were quite virtually unanimous in saying that just because you changed your genitalia doesn't mean that you change your. You've artificially changed your genitalia doesn't mean that you have, in the eyes of the law, changed your identity. We've gone full circle to the point that you don't even need to change that nowadays. You can just simply state, abracadabra, I am a female or I am a male, and then the law has to afford you all the privileges or whatever.
In 40, 50 years.
Well, no, he's saying already. Saying in Germany, you just need to state I identify as.
From this.
Oh, so we've gone absolutely 180 degrees within my lifetime, and I like to think I'm not all that decrepit and ancient. The decision states, recently, a justice of the New York State Supreme Court ruled that a woman who underwent surgery to become a man and subsequently married could not seek a divorce, and since a valid marriage had in fact never existed. The decision states that a marriage contract entered into by individuals of the same sex, one of whom has undergone sex reversal surgery, has no validity either in fact or in law. 5. New York Law Journal, April 30th, 1974, page 17, column 4. So we've definitely moved on that, because the word marriage now, same-sex marriage, is accepted in most democracies, something that Jewish law will never recognize as being the concept of as constituting chuppah v'kiddushin. I recently listened, because I like to be exposed to very different perspectives. And again, I'm not commenting on whether one should or shouldn't, but I listened on YouTube to a sermon from a conservative rabbi in Park Avenue Synagogue in New York, and talking about his refusal to participate in chuppah v'kiddushin of so-called interfaith marriages. Some of his conservative colleagues do. He personally does not, and he won't participate in. And it occurred to me, and it was actually very eloquent and very very human, and but it occurred to me as to how we would frame that. In that movement, it is framed. The discussion is framed at some conservative rabbis will participate, others won't. In other words, how would we approach this? This is not about whether I or even my movement would participate. It is, what is this? The concept of a Jew marrying a Gentile in chuppah v'kiddushin, there is no halachic. It's not on principle, because I'm against intermarriage or whatever, so I won't participate. It's because there is no validity to chuppah v'kiddushin. The concept of chuppah and kiddushin, by definition, is one that is a part of a process and a procedure that is entered into by two Jews. That's what it means.
No rabbi has the power in that case to give it effect.
Correct. It's not because and therefore it occurred to me that even though he was, to his credit, taking a moral stance on, I feel that it's, because he says he feels it's halachically wrong. That this is not about you. This is about whether there isn't a single halachic authority that would say that the concept, the institution of chuppah, the halacha of chuppah v'kiddushin, in any way applies to somebody who isn't Jewish. It just doesn't. It isn't relevant. It isn't chuppah v'kiddushin. You can call it whatever you like. You can stand on your head. It's just, and therefore, again, just to reiterate the way that we approach these things. It's not that I, as a person, or even orthodoxy, or is Zemashiesh. This is.
It's like when my wife and I, when we prepared for our wedding, and we ordered like a very artsy ketubah, but we submitted the text that the rabbinic court gave us, and then I realized that people now write their own ketubahs.
Well,
like,
no.
Insane. No, they exchange the ketubah, like whatever they do, but it's like a free ceremony. But what is this? Like, it's not. You can't call it a chuppah.
Correct.
Like it's whatever you call it, but it's not a chuppah.
Yeah. This is the nub of the issue. This is the nub of the issue, unfortunately. Okay. I think we will actually stop this. I'll leave you with the. We will do one more thing. We'll begin to look a little bit over the page. We'll go on page 78 to where it says there is an understandable desire. Because I do want to spend a bit more time. We're going to have to spend some time on actually looking into the Makoros and the sources. We have to do some proper Torah learning as well. Okay? So we're going to start that very shortly. But because this is a bigger societal issue as well, it is important that we give due consideration to the psychological and sociological factors as well. There is an understandable desire on the part of many physicians to consider such infants females and to perform whatever surgical procedures may be necessary to simulate the anatomy of a female. Okay, he's talking about a specific case, but I don't want to get into the case, but we'll see where he wants to go with this. The considerations motivating such a course of treatment are psychological in nature. There is a clear psychological need for unequivocal sexual identification. Medically speaking, it is much easier to enable the child to develop and function as a female than as a male. Inability to function sexually as a male cannot at present be overcome by means of medical treatment. The child may, however, be unable to function as a female more readily. So, it doesn't matter what the case is. The next paragraph is the one I want to emphasize. Jewish law does not sanction sex determination on the basis of psychological considerations. That's a key phrase. The presence of testes, either external or internal, is an absolute indication that the child is not a female, although other criteria may lead to a determination of hermaphroditism. Surgical removal of the testes constitutes an act of castration which is forbidden by Yikra Chaf Beis Chaf Dalet. Neither the desire to rear the child as a female nor the child's future inability to function as a male in sexual relations is sufficient reasons to remove the testes. There may, however, be removed if failure to do so presents a possible hazard to the life of the child, e.g. possible carcinoma. Surgical removal for therapeutic reasons does not, however, effect a halachic change of sexual status. Moreover, both surgical and hormonal modifications of gender may pose grave problems with regards to possible homosexual activity later in life, which that activity is forbidden by halacha as well. So, we have a little bit of an overview here. What I want to do now is let's begin to delve into some of the Makoros. Now we're going to do this a little bit backwards here because I don't want to. I don't want to start with the hashkafa and there's Kabbalistic ideas here as well. Which we will come to, which are absolutely fascinating. But let's do it for us in the right order, which is D. D, on page 4. Okay, halachic framework to gender reassignment surgery. Okay, so here, now let's start learning the Torah properly. Ma'uch v'chosus v'nosuk v'chorus lo'isakrivu la'Hashem u'ba'artzechem lo'isa'asu. The Torah prohibits bringing up any male animal with torn or crushed sexual organs as a korban in the Beis Hamikdash, and adds a separate prohibition not to perform a castration even in a non-temple context, even nothing to do with a korban, a human being, for whatever reason. That's an issa. So there is an issa d'oraisa to castrate, to perform castration.
Rav, does this apply also to, let's say, a pet? You have a pet?
Yes, yes. Very good. This is a really interesting question. Yeah. We can do a separate. I can show you some separate maramakomas on this. It is very common to want to neuter a dog or whatever, and that poses interesting halachic problems. Yes, wow. You can't do that. Yeah. Correct. Says next pasuk, Lo yovoi petzuadaka ukrushavcha b'kehal Hashem. A man with cut or crushed genital organs is prohibited from marrying a Jewish woman. And this would include any operation which cuts the reproductive organs or results in sterilization. And he notes down here that, as I mentioned before, that sometimes if somebody chas v'shalom has, let's say, prostate cancer, and you have to have a prostatectomy, which is there are different models medically, surgically, as to what one does. One needs to ask a shaila how and what one does. Then is a shaila of pikuach nefesh, and what and how it can be done is really not simple. But here's the thing: somebody who chooses, and there are societies and where teenagers choose to decide they're not going to have children. There was such a movement here in Germany, actually, about 10 years ago. Teenagers, for whatever reason, whether they're not to populate the planet or whatever the reason is, it doesn't really. There's a whole thing.
I myself met a family father, like a family father
Yes.
of 2 kids.
Yes.
And we were just talking, and he was just saying like, yeah, I made this
Vasectomy.
Yeah.
just because like I don't want to.
Yeah, well, he's had 2 children at least.
Right. So he was like setting
But
a limit.
teenagers, there were
Right.
teenagers who were doing this just by saying, "I'm going to focus on my career. I don't want to have kids." No, so for halachic reasons, if a Jew were to have to have this done, it would be also for them to get married.
Wow.
It'd be in Issa Da'iraisa. Loi Yavoi Petsua Daka Ukrus Shafcha B'Kal Hashem. We cannot perform Chuppah V'Kiddushin on somebody who has had that done. Because procreation, or the possibility, there are some people who are unable to have children, or don't manage to have children, or whatever, but that's beyond your control. But all the equipment has to be right and in place, potentially at least, but to then knowingly create a situation where you cannot have children, that then results in an Isur Lovoi Bakal. You can't get married.
But as far as it is reversible, if the person reverses
So
it,
some of them are, you should know, so I'm not a world expert in vasectomies, but I believe that there are some types which are reversible and others which are not.
Right, but
and if it's
he reverses
irreversible,
it, then he's again fine for
yeah. It doesn't reverse the fact that you've done the Issa D'Oraisa of castration.
Right.
That's done. You can't do anything about that. But then they would be able to be Lovo Bakal. Correct. Okay. Says the Gemara, Shabbos Daf Kuf Yud, source 16. Minayin lesirus ba'adam shehu osur Talmud loima ube'artzachem loisa'asu bochem loisa'asu. So the Gemara is explicitly telling us that the Torah prohibition on castration applies, even because the context was karbonis. Here, this Gemara is telling us very clearly it applies to human beings as well, not just animals. Says the Rambam, Hilchos Yisuri Bia Perek Tezayin Halacha Yud, Osur lahafsid Evorei Zera. It is forbidden to destroy the genitalia. Bein ba'odam, bein ba'behema chayav va'oif. Echad tameim ve'echad tahirim. Bein ba'eretz Yisrael, bein b'chutz la'aretz. He's covered all the bases. So if you own a dog in Germany and you want or need to have it neutered, you have to come and ask your local Orthodox rabbi a halachic shaila. It's a real shaila. I don't even know if people are. I have had this shaila a few times back when in London.
Did you ever come to the conclusion that it's okay?
I can't come to the conclusion it isn't okay.
No.
The question is.
So
So the shaila is. So there are a number of halachic solutions, halachically creative solutions. Some of which involve actually, don't laugh, but properly being makne the dog to somebody else, to a Gentile, but not just heard of mechiras chametz,
like the
but you no.
Kalim during Corona, didn't we do that for
that again? That was No, it has to be. It's not a cop out. It's not. It has to be watertight. It has to be a genuine. And how you achieve that, but again, that's not for now. But it's just good for your general knowledge. Afal Pisha Ne'emar asks the Rambam a question on himself. I have paskened that this applies outside of Eretz Yisrael. Afal Pisha Ne'emar ba'artzachem lo yisa'asu. The pasuk says u'ba'artzachem mi pi hashmuel lamdu. So that would appear to imply that the Isser is only in Eretz Yisrael. Mi pi hashmuel lamdu shadavar zenog b'chol makayim. We have a Messiah, Torah Shabbat Peh, that this applies b'chol makim. Ve'inyan ha'kosov le'yasan zeis b'Yisrael bein begufa and bein begufa acherim. V'chol ha'mesaris loika min ha'Torah. Anybody who performs this, there's Malchus. Yeah, there is Malchus. On to page 5, source 18. Shulchan Aruch, Even HaEzer, Siman Hey, Seif Yud Aleph. Ha-mesares es ha-nekeva bein ba'odam, bein b'shar minim, potur avol osur. Sterilizing a female is not punishable under this prohibition, but it is also midrabanan. And possibly min HaTorah, according to some. It's a machlokes, the Gra, very good. You see here, the Gra, the Vilna Gaon, note 10 down here, the Vilna Gaon held it is an Issa D'Oraisa. But the Shulchan Aruch perhaps didn't hold that, but it's definitely not also midrabanan. So there's no, it's not mutter.
Why this distinction between?
Because the man's Eivore Hazera are different to a woman's. It is the man that needs to inseminate. There's also this Hotzah Hazera. There's possibly other difficulties. And here's another Issa D'Oraisa, which is Lo yihye kli gever al isho v'lo yilbash gever simlas isho ki toyavas Hashem Elokecha kol oisei eile. Cross-dressing for a man to wear women's clothes and vice versa is in and of itself an Issa D'Oraisa. Says Rashi, Shetei doime leish k'dei sheteilech beinu anoshim. She wears women's clothes. A woman wears man's clothes for the purposes of mingling in a male environment, and vice versa.
Right.
A male who wishes to wear women's clothes and to go to the women's whatever, an environment.
Like Yentl.
Yeah. So the Torah absolutely prohibits cross-dressing. Rashi understands from Chazal the underlying reason from the prohibition is to prevent blurring of the genders. You could argue, and I'm not without comment, but there have been a number of cases, certainly alleged for sure, of serious assault by males in what until now was exclusively women's environments, lockers, changing rooms, toilets. There have been a number of, and this is fact, where without the allegations are whether what has or hasn't been proven is neither here nor there. But the fact is there are multiple serious allegations of rape and from people in clearly still may identifying as female, but clearly capable of performing sexual violence on women in an environment that they thought they were only with other women and would be safe.
Yeah.
So it's being caring for women. Logically, you would think keeping women safe. That should include keeping them safe. Full stop. But and it's not ironic. It's quite preposterous.
Yeah.
Okay, next. The Rambam. Next Rambam. Ha'avoras haseyar mishar haguf kegoin beis hashechi ubeis ha'erva. Right, for a man to shave body hair that normally men would not shave. Now, again, this could depend to some extent a little bit on the mores, the social mores of the time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let's say it were to become, it was quite interesting. One of my first revelations when I came to Berlin was realizing that having a beard is actually here pretty in. It's cool. And then I went to the barber, and it's like there's this gel for the beard, and how do you want your beards are. And my wife, who doesn't particularly like beards, but a rabbi, you have a beard, and she doesn't particularly. And I came and I pointed out to her, it's cool. Look how cool your husband is. And it's one of the few places on the planet where I'm actually cool and dressed like this. In Prenzlauer Berg, I'm a hipster. I've had people stop and ask me where I got my hat from, which is cool. So who knew? I'm a cool guy. Anyway, but it's because a lot of these things do depend on what is considered appropriate and acceptable and fashionable. So, for example, let's say it were to become clearly when the Rambam wrote this based on Chazal, it was men were manly and they had hair everywhere. They didn't want to be effeminate and get rid of their hair. Assuming that is still the case, and assuming that, for example, let's assume that in society generally, and it's not, and by the way, it has changed a lot. There is what is known in England as the pink pound, which means it was the buying power of the gay community that have a very high disposable income. It was known in England as the because of the pound. We have the pound, not the euro. It was called the pink pound. That's what it was called. And it's a segment of market which, business was very interested in. These are often people who have a high disposable income. They don't have kids, and they have a high disposable income. They're in creative industries, and there's the pink travel industry, and the whole and grooming products are worth billions of dollars. It's a massive market. Let's assume, however, that still most men do not shave their legs. They don't wax their legs. Let's assume. Here's a halachic shaila: is it mutter for you to wax your legs?
Right.
And the answer is no. It is not mutter. Until such time as all men do it, or such a significant proportion that it is no longer exclusively a female thing, and it could be we're reaching that tipping point. I don't know. I don't know. That's a moot point. That's a technical point. But ha'avoras haseir meishara guf kagoin beis hashechi beis ha'erva einoi osur min ha'torah b'divrei seifrim. It's not an issa min ha'torah, but it is rabbinically osur. V'ha'maviroi makinois makas maradus, and you get the appropriate rabbinic lashes. I don't know how they feel different to the malchus, but it's the way and the number and how they're applied, etc. This is only, says the Rambam, in a place where this activity is pretty much exclusive to women. But in a place, in a place where it is acceptable for both men and women to do it, then there's no malchus. He says ein makin oisai. Does he mean
that it's good?
Does he mean that it's okay, or you just ein makin oisai? Question. Umutar lahavir seir sharoi varim b'misparayim b'chol mokim, and the hair of any other place can be removed with scissors, because remember there's a separate issue of ta'ar, of a razor. But with scissors can be removed b'chol mokim, other hair from other areas. In other words, other areas that are not exclusively for women. So let's get this clear. Let's see the note here. It is rabbinically prohibited to adopt the habits and lifestyles of the opposite gender, e.g. for men to shave body hair, provided such activities are exclusive to the other gender. Unisex activities are fine. Modern poskim have applied this prohibition to GRS and also to hormone treatment. So,
surgery,
gender reassignment surgery. So clearly it would be a separate issa also, gender reassignment surgery. Furthermore, any candidate for GRS will be required first to spend time in preparation for the other gender role. This will involve cross-dressing and other prohibitions of this mitzvah on a Torah level. So just a quick word, by the way, I have sometimes my eyebrows get very long, and for many years I just left them, and then until I looked into the halacha in a bit more detail. And it seems to me quite clear now that given that it is something that is equally, when the barber asks me the whole time, then clearly that is a normal thing for men to do. Right. And since then I have started, when he asked me, do I want to do it? I mean, I don't have them, I don't know what women, all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff they do to their eyebrows. Just for the record, I'm not into that. But when they get crazy long here, yes, he just cuts them a little bit. That is okay. If I was asked to shine it today, is it okay to wax your legs? I think I would probably say it's probably still not clear at all that it would be mutter, because I think probably the vast majority of men do not wax their legs. Yeah. So that would still be also. So, and then again, that may change in time. Weiter. And then finally we have over here 21. Hachovel ba'atzmai afal pi she'eino rashoi potur. Self-inflicting wounding without a medical need is prohibited. So there is no heter. Now, what's considered a legitimate need, as he puts in the notes down here, sometimes psychological considerations may be halachically relevant, but that might not be enough to determine that it is absolutely necessary. So, elective surgery, having a nose job for a woman, anything that involves, you're not allowed to wound yourself. It goes back to the point that we started with. Yeah. Your body is not your own to do whatever you want with it. We have to look after our body. Now, what it means is at the very least, if an Orthodox Jew needs to ask a shaila, and it could be in some cases they will be told, and I've got some interesting tshuvas about women who are having cosmetic surgery, breast reconstruction surgery, The Botox is usually just purely to
Right, so it's
and that would be also there's no
Right,
be no issa,
right,
no
right.
heta for Botox.
Right.
But breast reconstruction surgery and the construction of an artificial nipple, for example, stuff like that is mentioned by the poskim, and I'll show you Rabbi Elyashiv's tshuva on that.
Wow.
It's fascinating.
Wow.
Because I just want to be clear for the record, of course, halacha takes into account psychological distress. It may take it into account. It may not be enough to get us over the threshold, and everything would have to be looked at obviously on a case-by-case basis. How much stress, but license is needed to be found. You can't just the concept of I would like to do this and therefore it's my body, I'm going to do whatever I want. That is absolutely not in line with halacha. Okay?
So this becomes even healthier psychologically because you deal with the topic if you really need it or not, and you have
Correct.
to justify yourself, and not just I want to do it. I'm gonna do
Absolutely,
it.
absolutely, absolutely.